Welcome back to our study on the book of Revelation. Tonight we're going to be in chapter 8, so go ahead and open your Bibles up and turn there now. Now, for those of you that watched chapter 6, you probably got to chapter 7's video and were wondering what happened. We were talking about the seals, the 7 seals, and at the end of chapter 6, we got to the 6th seal, and it was this huge earthquake and everything was going wrong and it was horrible. And you're probably wondering, what in the world could the 7th seal be? And then you have chapter 7, which is almost like this standalone chapter inserted in there that kind of talks about the 144,000 and the martyrs that are happened during the tribulation, what's going to happen to them and all that kind of stuff. Well, rest assured that in chapter 8, we're getting right back to the 7 seals. And so we had the first 6 seals unveiled in chapter 6. And in chapter 7, we kind of went on this totally different path and talked about the 144,000. But in chapter 8, we're getting back to unsealing the 7th seal. And what's interesting, once the 7th seal is revealed, it reveals 7 trumpets. And so we're going to also discuss what those 7 trumpets entail. So let's look now, chapter 8, verse 1. When the Lamb broke the 7th seal on the scroll, there was silence throughout heaven for about a half an hour. I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and they were given 7 trumpets. So half hour of silence, which is very interesting. Just thinking about heaven and the beasts who are shouting, "Holy, holy, holy," in front of God, and you have these angels that have been speaking these bold proclamations, and I can just imagine John just taking all this in, this vision that he has, or this all these revelations that are being given to him, and suddenly, after all this stuff is bombarding him, heaven goes quiet for a half hour. Imagine what that must have been like. Imagine just standing in the presence of heaven and you just silence and you're looking around. And most scholars believe that this silence was supposed to help represent of how momentous this was and how sobering this was as the 7 trumpets are about to be revealed, and there are some intense things that are about to be revealed that's going to happen to the earth and to the people of earth. And so there's this silence in heaven kind of just building up the moment when the 7 trumpets are revealed. And that's what the 7th seal contains. The 7th seal contains the 7 trumpets as it's revealed to John here. So let's keep reading and now find out what's going on with these trumpets. Verse 3. Then another angel with a gold incense burner came and stood at the altar. And a great amount of incense was given to him to mix with the prayers of God's people as an offering on the gold altar before the throne. The smoke of the incense, mixed with the prayers of God's holy people, ascended up to God from the altar where the angel had poured them out. Then the angel filled the incense burner with fire from the altar and threw it down upon the earth. And thunder crashed, lightning flashed, and there was a terrible earthquake. Now I want to be just up front with you as we deal with the chapters in Revelation. I'm torn a lot on whether it's figurative or literal with some of these things, because this is as John has seen it. There is no doubt about that. I don't have any qualms about that. John is seeing these angels and these actions that the angels are taking. The question is whether he is foreseeing the future exactly as it is, where angels will literally be doing these actions to kickstart what's happening on earth, or whether it is symbolic. They are doing these things, and it's not like a direct correlation that they're doing these things and then these things happen, but it is showing that there is movement in heaven happening whenever it happens down there. And so I bring all that up because what is interesting here is how important the prayers of God's people are in this mix. Like, God made sure John knew kind of how things got kickstarted, and whether it's figurative or whether it's literal, either way, there's purpose behind why God includes these details, these exact details. And the exact details are there's going to be incense mixed with the prayers of God's people. And that aroma is going to lift up to God. And it is at that point that God is going to move and bring these consequences down to earth, not before. So until the incense is mixed and until the prayers of God's people are mixed with the incense, not until then does God move. And throughout the Bible, we see this over and over and over again, that God chooses not to move until the prayers of his people reach his ears. I think one of the best examples is the book of Judges. You read the book of Judges, over and over again, God allows himself to be pushed out of the community of Israel. And then whenever God is absent, evil is going to fill that void. And so all kinds of awful things happen to the Jewish people when they're not protected by God. And so they cry out for mercy to God. And it isn't to the point where enough people are praying, God, help us, save us, protect us, that he moves and raises a judge and saves his people. And over again, God wants people to partner with him in order for him to move. And I believe that's even going to be the case when the end times come, tribulation comes. It's not going to happen until enough people say, Jesus, please come back. Rescue your people. Save us. Bring your kingdom down to earth. And when enough of those prayers, and I think especially the prayers of the persecuted, reach the ears of God, these things are going to happen. So point number one is this. Our prayers matter. Our prayers matter on every level. God is not going to move without our prayers. And so we have to take the onus on ourselves and say, our prayers matter, and I'm going to spend significant time praying to my God for the things that are burdened on my heart. And I'm also going to pray to God that he will give me insight to pray for the things that are on his heart. And that's coupling with our heart, pairing with God's heart, is when things really move in a mighty way. All right, let's keep reading. Now we're going to hear about the first four trumpets. And the chapter 8 only covers the first four trumpets. We'll deal with the last three trumpets in chapter 9, but let's look at the first four trumpets. Verse 6, Then the seven angels with the seven trumpets prepared to blow their mighty blast. The first angel blew his trumpet, and hail and fire mixed with blood were thrown down on the earth. 1/3 of the earth was set on fire, 1/3 of the trees were burned, and all the green grass was burned. Then the second angel blew his trumpet, and a great mountain of fire was thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the water in the sea became blood, 1/3 of all living things in the sea died, and 1/3 of all the ships on the sea were destroyed. Then the third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from the sky, burning like a torch. It fell on 1/3 of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star was Bitterness. It made 1/3 of the water bitter, and many people died from drinking the bitter water. All right, I'm going to stop there just for a second because I know I just threw a lot at you. So the first trumpet blows, and then we have hail and fire mixed, which is a strange combination because hail, of course, ice, right? And then fire and ice don't usually mix, but if you think about it, what a comet is exactly that. You have this fire and ice mix because you have ice, and that's what is, what gives it its tail is all the debris and vapor that is coming off of that comet. And so it's possible. It almost makes me wonder if you're talking about what does this look like from a scientific point of view. If we were just observing it from that point of view, is this a comet coming down and hitting the earth? And then the second angel blows his trumpet, and a great mountain of fire was thrown into the sea. And then the third angel blows his trumpet, and a great star fell from the sky, making all the water turn to bitterness. Don't know for sure, all right, because I know these things are consecutively, and on some levels there are many scholars that believe there's going to be this hail and fire happen, and then after a period there's going to be this other thing, this mountain of fire happen, and then after a period there's going to be a third trumpet is blown, and then this happens. But I have to ask, because these things are so similar, if this is the same cataclysmic event, that God is revealing it through this figurative way of releasing the seals, releasing the trumpets, that kind of stuff. But are all these things describing the same cataclysmic event of some kind of meteor or comet or something impacting the earth and breaking off and hitting different parts of the earth in a way that devastates the ecosystem? I mean, a third of these things, grass and the trees burning up completely, the water turning bitter so it's undrinkable, all these different things. And I think the next couple verses also kind of support my theory on this, so let's look at them now. Verse 12. Then the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and 1/3 of the sun was struck, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, and they became dark. And 1/3 of the day was dark, and also 1/3 of the night. Then I looked, and I heard a single eagle crying loudly as it flew through the air, "Terror, terror, terror to all who belong to this world, because of what will happen when the last 3 angels blow their trumpets." All right, so I know I'm a logical guy. I'm a scientific guy. I'm a logical guy. I like things to fit in a nice, neat box. And sometimes God doesn't fit in a nice, neat box. Like, okay, most of the time, God does not fit in a nice, neat box. So there's nothing that God could not do. There's no reason why he couldn't have hail and fire come down at the same time. There's no reason why he can't have a special star come down and turn stuff to bitterness, that kind of stuff. There's nothing that he can't do. I mean, he birthed the whole universe and all its intricacies. He can do anything. All right. But just from a logical perspective, I am wondering how this is all going to play out. And it's just my theory that these are all the same kind of cataclysmic event here. And if you think about it, if the earth was impacted on one side of the earth, then what you would see is, just huge ecological changes that would affect the sky. And if there was an impact at that level, it would cause all kinds of volcanic eruptions during that impact and that kind of thing. You would have all kinds of ash going into the sky. You would have darkness in the sky because of all the ash and the different stuff. It would look like it was nighttime. And so for 1/3 of the sun and 1/3 of the moon and 1/3 of the sky to go dark, those are 3 different things, all right? 3 different places in the solar system, all right? So that can do anything, but if you're talking about just from a logical perspective of what we know, what is more likely is 1/3 of the earth is covered in darkness, and for 1/3 of that earth, they can't see the sun. They can't see the moon. They can't see the sky. And that's why 1/3 of it is basically darkened out because of this cataclysmic event. And so I'm going to skip to point number 3 and come back to point number 2. So I'm just going to hit this because it's pretty obvious. I've already kind of mentioned it. The earth will be hit with cataclysmic events during the tribulation. It's not going to be just a spiritual thing. It's not going to be just war or famine or disease. There is going to be cataclysmic changes to the earth because of supernatural things, I think, coming out of the sky and hitting the earth. And this is going to have devastating effects on the entire earth because of it. And 1/3 of it might be completely wiped out. The people, the plants, the grass. That's certainly what it seems to lead me to believe. Now, coming back to point number 2, and I hate to just debate theory in this chapter. I really wanted to talk about concrete Bible stuff, but I think this is important because it affects the entire view that we have for the next few chapters. And so this is the point that I want to bring. Number 2, consecutive progressive versus concurrent recapitulation. I'll say it again. Consecutive progressive versus concurrent recapitulation. All right. But the reason why that we have these two, why I put these 2 in there, is these are the 2 prevailing theories. All right. Consecutive progressive is a theory that there are 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls of wrath. We haven't got to those yet, but we're going to get to them. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls of his wrath. And that as each seal is revealed, they are all 7 separate events that happen. 7 separate events happen, 7 seals, 7 separate trumpets, or 7 different events that happen next. And then the 7 bowls of wrath are 7 additional things that will happen. And they all happen in a chronological time frame. It's not like a trumpet happens before a seal. A trumpet always happens after the 7 seals. There's not like a bowl of wrath that's mixed in with the trumpets. No, it's 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls of his wrath. And so they believe that as the tribulation goes on, if you believe in the consecutive progressive theory, you believe that things can continuously get worse and worse and worse as it goes along, and that God is revealing that it's just going to get worse and worse. Okay? The other side of this is the concurrent recapitulation. This theory believes that it's just not chronological like that. And what is actually happening is that John is getting these revelations from God, and God is revealing what's going to happen in the end times, but he's doing it in a figurative way, and he's doing it in a beautiful, poetic type of way, and with a lot of metaphor and a lot of repetition. And if you look at John's work, you see a lot of evidence of this, not just in Revelation, but it's in Revelation, but it's also in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and it's in the book of John, where he uses, it's really beautiful language, but he repeats himself, and he does it in a certain type of order to kind of re-emphasize the point. And so if you believe in the concurrent theory, is you believe that these 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowls are all describing the same events. These things are going on at the same time. But as the 7 seals reveal it in a more generic way and give you the overview of it, then the 7 trumpets reveal that the calamity, it gets even worse and gives you more details about it, more specific details, and that the devastation grows. And then the 7 bowls of his wrath are going to reveal even more details about how things will be the way they will be, and how bad they will be, and how devastating the effects will be on the people. And so the 7 seals talk about a quarter of the population, a quarter of the plants, all that kind of stuff being hurt. The 7 trumpets deal with a third, and then you look at, there's in the 7 bowls of his wrath, it even gets up to half of the people affected. I have to admit to you, now understand that the prevailing theory is probably the consecutive progressive. That is the more prominent and more popular view. I find myself leaning in the concurrent recapitulation boat. I see that because I see so many similarities between the 7 seals and the trumpets and the bowls, and how it seems to be describing some of the same cataclysmic events. Just there's fascinating new details being unfolded. And so it's almost like God, and he loves to work in 3s, and he loves to work in 7s. Those are his 2 holy numbers. And so it's like he reveals the same tribulation events 3 times in 7 different segments. And he kind of, the new layer unfolds new information each time. But it's describing the same tribulation events in real life. So as I go forward, you'll see me kind of leaning that way. And I think as we look at some of the 7 bowls of his wrath, I'll actually connect them back to the seals and the trumpets to give you some more food for thought. But hopefully I gave you plenty of food for thought for this evening. Go back, reread chapter 8. Look at it for yourself. Reread the 7 seals and see if you see the similarities, and see which of the prevailing theories that you are leaning towards to help you interpret what it is going to be like during the tribulation time period. But I enjoyed chapter 8. Hope you did too. Read ahead for chapter 9 as we read the next 3 woes. I mean, this eagle is flying through and talking about terror, 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 because of what's going to happen as the 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpet are unveiled. So go ahead and read ahead, and we'll tackle that next week.